Streetball, a variation of basketball that is known for players showing off their creativity, craziest dunks, and most incredible moves. It's a game where humiliating your opponent is the main objective, which makes you think that streetballers could never do well in a professional environment like the NBA, right? Well, what if I told you that there was one streetballer who was so good that he did the impossible? A player who not only made it to the NBA, but also humiliated their defenders with the same moves he used during his streetball career. This legend is Rafer Alston, and to find out how he went from being a street baller to making the NBA Finals, we have to go back to 1989. A young Rafer Alston is 13 years old, living in Jamaica, Queens, New York, amongst one of the worst epidemics in the history of the United States. Just walking down the street to play basketball is a massive risk for Alston, but this never stopped him. Rafer would spend his days dreaming of hearing his name called in the NBA draft.
Like Rafer Alston.
Just like his idol Isaiah Thomas, to replicating his moves on the concrete courts of New York, until one day when everything changed for Alston. Stephon Marbury, Alston's best friend and himself, would head down to Rucker Park, where the pair knew they would be able to witness some incredibly high-level basketball. However, today was different. Ron Niclario, a local high school coach, was down 2 players, and if he didn't fill those spots, his team would have to forfeit. Luckily for Coach Niclario, he saw 2 familiar faces in the crowd. Alston and Marbury would sit patiently on the bench, ecstatic to be sitting this close to the action, until Coach Ron's players needed a rest. Rafer would enter the game and showcase a repertoire of incredible moves against grown men. The MC, shocked by what he was seeing, grabbed his mic and announced, "This kid is the Energizer." In the summer of the following year, the Energizer became a regular at Rucker Park. The now 14-year-old was pulling out insane move after move, and he decided he wanted to wow the audience with something different.
And he skipped. And I jumped out my seat and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is my name, Skip to Malou."
However, while the newly dubbed Skip to Malou was dominating the streets, he was struggling in another area of his life. Because it wasn't just other basketball players that Rafer and his friends idolized. No, it was kingpins like Pee Wee Kirkland that they looked up to. Because, just like the majority of his peers, Alston grew up in extreme poverty. And with his father falling victim to the substance abuse epidemic and his older brother in jail, Alston was often out until the early hours of the morning playing dice, occasionally earning himself $1,500 a night. However, this is where issues would begin for Rafer. You see, he would often wake up in the middle of the day, and given that he had to take 2 buses to get to his high school, Benjamin Cardoza, Alston often ended up missing classes for days on end. As a result of this, throughout his junior and senior seasons, Rafer would average 33 points a game, but he only played a grand total of 10 games. His attendance meant that he was academically ineligible. Skip, dreaming of playing Division I basketball like his idol, would check his mailbox every day, waiting for the same letters Stephon had been receiving. Yet, D1 colleges just weren't interested. Philip Matthews, the head coach at Ventura County, a junior college in California, had received a VHS tape from New York. Intrigued, he played the tape and would watch in awe, shocked that the player he was watching wasn't being recruited by high major Division I colleges, and Philip knew what he had to do. In his first game under Coach Matthews, Rafer would only score 2 points. His head coach forced him to showcase the other side of Skip to Malou, as Alston would record 13 assists, and this wasn't all, because during another regular season game, he was only 3 points shy of a triple-double, with 10 assists, 7 points, and a mind-boggling 10 steals, leading Ventura to a California state title, with Rafer being named as the tournament MVP. But had he really changed? Because shortly after their championship-winning season ended, Skip's scholarship was revoked. Why? Well, his grades had seen a massive rise, with Alston opting to study psychology, but his truancy continued, resulting in Rafer Alston being back in the exact same position he was just a year ago. Jerry Tarkanian, the head coach at Fresno State, a Division I college in California, had 3 point guards who were all set to leave at the end of the 1996-1997 season. So, Coach Tarkanian had a problem. To solve his upcoming point guard hole, Tarkanian would sit down with someone he had seen dominate at Ventura County and offer him a full Division I scholarship. But he had one condition. Throughout the 1996-1997 season, Skip would have to attend another junior college, Fresno City, where his main focus would be addressing his off-the-court issues. While Fresno City was nowhere near as successful as Ventura on the court, Rafer, understanding this was his final chance to turn his life around, would dominate the classroom. He attended every single class, steadily improving his grades as the season progressed, and Coach Tarkanian would keep his promise. Rafer was just one step away from achieving his childhood dream. Nothing could get in his way, or so he thought. Throughout his first Division I season, Alston averaged 11 points whilst throwing 7.3 assists per game. On top of this, his defensive ability allowed Coach Tarkanian to implement a full court press, helping Fresno State to win 21 games. Rafer had proven to the world that while Skip to My Lou was a part of who he was, it was ultimately just a nickname given to him by an MC. And in fact, Alston was an NBA level point guard who decided to forego his senior season at Fresno State to enter the NBA draft. But had he done enough? August of 1993, a fresh basketball brand has just entered the Air Jordan dominated market, named And One. While Nike was focused on selling shoes, And One initially began by selling t-shirts geared towards streetball players rather than the general population, and by 1996 they had signed their first professional athlete. In similar fashion to Coach Matthews, a VHS tape would land on the desks of the And One executives, and given that they were planning on shaking up the basketball landscape, they knew exactly what they had to do. So, Skip to My Lou, alongside some other New York streetballers, would travel around the United States, playing against other cities' best streetball teams. Their goal? Showcase a unique style of basketball, one that removes some of the most fundamental rules to allow room for more creativity, highlights, and embarrassment. During his pre-draft period, Skip had shown that not only was he a legitimate NBA prospect, but he was also one of the best and most exciting streetball players to ever step foot onto the blacktop. However, with NBA executives being highly focused on Rafer's every move, was this really the best decision? June 24th, 1998, Rafer is sitting inside a restaurant in Los Angeles as NBA Commissioner David Stern begins to read out the first round draft picks. Due to playing his collegiate basketball in California, Los Angeles Lakers general manager Jerry West had seen a lot of Rafer in college, and he needed to find a solid backup point guard for his newly formed super team. Therefore, Alston was invited for 2 private pre-draft workouts, and he assumed it would be the Lakers calling his name.
With the 23rd pick in the 1998 NBA Draft, the Denver Nuggets select Tyronn Lue from the University of Nebraska.
With the 26th pick in the 1998 NBA Draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select Sam Jacobson from the University of Minnesota.
However, despite Los Angeles choosing to go with another point guard, Skip wasn't bothered because his real hometown team, the New York Knicks, after losing to the Indiana Pacers in the second round of the 1998 playoffs, were also in need of a backup point guard. On top of this, they had been scouting Alston since he was 13 years old, even going so far as sending scouts to California to watch his collegiate games.
With the 9th pick in the second round of the NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select DeMarco Johnson, University of North Carolina, Charlotte.
Yet again, Skip had been lied to. But why? Well, NBA teams were worried about his off-court actions because Rafer had been involved in a domestic violence incident and had failed to attend his mandatory anger management classes. This truancy resulted in the point guard potentially facing jail time or a hefty fine. And this wasn't all. NBA teams were worried about selecting Rafer Alston, but getting Skip to My Lou. The draft would go to an ad break as Rafer sat alone and upset. But once the draft returned, this happened.
With the 10th pick in the second round of the NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Rafer Alston from Fresno State.
I like what Kenny Smith said about this guy. John Thompson said he can dribble through a keyhole. What's your take on Rafer Alston?
Kenny Smith would have taken him first with his enthusiasm. Yeah.
Is Milwaukee looking? That's a tough club to make now when you think of, Brandon and Perry. So he's going to go in there now and he's going to have a fight on his hands to make this club.
However, despite selecting Alston, the Bucks decided not to offer him a contract for the 1998-1999 season, resulting in Alston being unable to pay the $25,000 fine he was required to donate to a women's refuge shelter. Therefore, Alston would spend 90 days in jail throughout what should have been his first NBA season. Rafer would lay in his cell reflecting on all the other New York streetball legends who had made it this far, such as Pee Wee Kirkland, who had been picked by the Chicago Bulls, but had failed to ever step foot onto an NBA floor. Given that his rookie contract with the Bucks wasn't guaranteed, he was going to have to make some dramatic changes if he was ever going to achieve his dream. Therefore, Skip decided to play in the NBA Development League, which at the time was known as the CBA for the Idaho Stampede. His goal wasn't to dominate. Instead, Rafer knew that he had to show the NBA he was capable of being Rafer Alston, because it was clear to him that his street image had been etched into the brains of NBA executives. Throughout his 17 games for the Stampede, Milwaukee would begin to understand what Alston truly had to offer. Therefore, right before the 1999-2000 season began, they would sign Rafer to a 2-year deal. However, would he actually play, or was he destined to just be another streetball legend who never saw the court? February 17th, 2000. After finally being placed in the lineup after months of hard work, Alston would make his NBA debut, scoring his first points on a pull-up jump shot. And 2 months later, on April 19th, he would score in double digits, scoring 10 points in the Bucks' final regular season game. However, this would be the only positive for quite a while. The Milwaukee Bucks and head coach George Karl had little playing time for a developing NBA point guard. Their focus was competing for an NBA championship. However, starting point guard Sam Cassell injured his ankle late in the 2001-2002 season. Alston would start in his place and begin to show glimpses of who he could become, scoring 14 points against the Sacramento Kings and having 2 10-assist games in the 5 games he was able to start. So, with his contract up for renewal, it seemed likely that Rafer would be brought back by the Bucks into a larger, true backup point guard role. However, this was far from the truth, with Milwaukee choosing not to re-sign Alston. And it wasn't just the Bucks who weren't interested, because despite Golden State signing him, he was ultimately cut just before the season began. So, was this the end of Skip to My Lou's NBA career? The Mobile Revelers were a brand new team in the NBA's brand new league, the NBA D-League, and it was here where Rafer would once again showcase his true abilities as an NBA point guard. Skip had yet again shown the NBA world who he truly was, and on January 9th, something incredible would happen. Lenny Wilkens, another point guard from New York who paved his way to a 15-year NBA career, was named as the Toronto Raptors head coach before the 2000-2001 season began. Given his heritage, Wilkens was always aware of the upcoming New York point guards, and he, much like Jerry Tykanian, saw something no one else did. Therefore, Rafer would sign with the Raptors on a 10-day contract. Knowing that this was his final chance to prove to the NBA that he could run a team, Skip would drop 17 points in his debut game and throw 11 assists in his third, averaging 10.7 points, 6 assists, and 1 steal throughout his 10-day contract. Toronto had found a diamond in the rough. So, on January 20th, Rafer was signed for the remainder of the 2002-2003 NBA season. Alston had finally achieved his lifelong dream. He was a legitimate NBA point guard, and this wasn't all, because he was given the starting point guard role in their final 3 games that season, where he would average 20.3 points, 7.8 assists, 6.3 rebounds, and 1.3 steals per game. However, had he done enough to sign another NBA deal, or would he have to return to the D-League once again? June 26, 2003. The Miami Heat have just selected Dwayne Wade with their 5th pick and would sign free agent Lamar Odom a few months later to pair with their 2002 top pick Caron Butler. And Heat president Pat Riley wasn't done. You see, he knew his talented group of forwards would need a solid floor general. And this wasn't the only positive, because within head coach Stan Van Gundy's system, Skip would get a chance to showcase another ability no one thought he had. Because late in a regular season game against Dallas, this happened.
It's Alston. This is for the win. It's good!
Everyone knows you as a slam dunk guy, as a fancy street ball player. When did you become a shooter?
I've been working on it every summer, working on it when I get in the training camp, work on it every day in practice. It's a shot that they give it to me night in, night out. No one gives me respect in this league yet.
But this wasn't all, because thanks to Pat Riley's vision, the Heat added 17 wins to their record, earning them the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. However, would Rafer's game translate to the playoffs? Game 1 of their first round matchup against the New Orleans Hornets saw Rafer continue with his off-the-bench role. He played a vital 19 minutes, hitting big 3 after big 3, as well as this vital pull-up jump shot.
He fired. Yes! Rafer Alston with a big bucket. Miami leads by 6.
Thanks to Rafer's play, Miami secured a Game 1 victory, and it looked likely that they would be the team to move on. However, Alston's minutes would take a nosedive, going from 32 per game during the regular season to 21 throughout their 7-game series victory against the Hornets, and this negative trend only got worse. During their second round matchup against the Indiana Pacers, things began in a similar fashion. Alston would see a massive increase in his minutes, playing 35 in Game 1, allowing him to score 17 points, and 36 minutes in Game 2, where he would throw 5 assists. But in the same fashion to their Hornets series, Skip's minutes took a sudden decline, only playing an average of 16 per game over games 3, 4, 5, and 6. Indiana would defeat the Heat 4-2, and Rafer had a huge decision to make, because the Heat were interested in retaining his backup point guard services. They valued his ability to catch and shoot and be an extension of Coach Van Gundy. However, another NBA team had a starting point guard role that needed to be filled, as well as a guaranteed 6-year contract: the Toronto Raptors. Alston was conflicted. If he stays in Miami, he will likely be competing for an NBA championship, as shortly after their season ended, they traded for the most dominant big man in the history of the NBA, Shaquille O'Neal. Yet, if he signs with Toronto, he would be their starting point guard, no longer having to spend full possession standing in the corner. But it's likely the Raptors would completely miss the playoffs. July 29th, 2004, Robert Babcock has just signed the missing piece for his 2004-2005 roster, head coach Sam Mitchell. Babcock believes Coach Mitchell is the perfect pair with his freshly signed point guard, Rafer Alston. As promised, Skip was finally a starting NBA point guard. He would average 34 minutes per game, 14.2 points, 6.4 assists, and 1.5 steals throughout the 2004-2005 season. While his new role gave him more minutes, it also gave him freedom to express the other side of his game. Rafer was now able to bring out Skip to Malu more, wowing fans and embarrassing his defenders.
Alston knocks it.
However, everything wasn't all positive for Rafer. Toronto would only win 33 games that season, and Coach Mitchell would often use degrading language towards his players. Skip had also set some new goals. Not only had he been drafted into the NBA, he had worked his way into a starting point guard role. So, he set his sights on playing for a team with championship intentions, officially requesting a trade from the Toronto Raptors. Jeff Van Gundy, the head coach of the Houston Rockets, was chatting to his brother, former Miami Heat head coach Stan, about what needed to be done to improve their roster, because Houston had been eliminated by the Dallas Mavericks in only the first round of the playoffs in the 2004-2005 NBA season. Stan pointed out that they needed to find a legitimate floor general to help mesh the Rocket star players Tracy McGrady and Yao Ming together, as well as a player who could be relied upon to carry some of the offensive load if any of the star players were out, and Stan knew just the player. Mike James, no not that one, was traded to the Toronto Raptors in exchange for Stan's former backup point guard just before the 2005-2006 season began. Rafer had got his wish. Whilst Alston's scoring was vital for the Rockets, averaging 12.1 points per game, it was something else that Rafer provided, which, much like his shooting, was often overlooked by those in and around the NBA. You see, a key part of the streetball game is scoring and embarrassing defenders, yes, but another huge aspect is the flashy passes. So whilst Rafer was known for embarrassing defenders with his ball handling, he often dissected defenses with his passing.
Shots inside. All arms and elbows, down low McGrady, nice move to the basket.
Getting the ball to his all-star teammates with flash and flair.
Rafer, great pass to T-Mac to the right.
Much like he did in Rucker Park. However, Houston faced some key issues. Yao Ming, their 7'6", 2002 #1 pick, struggled with constant foot injuries. And this wasn't all. Tracy McGrady, a 6-time All-Star that was the focal point of the Rockets' offense, was in and out of the lineup with similar issues to Yao. Houston would fail to make the NBA playoffs in the 2005-2006 season. But that was all about to change. January 17th, 2007, the Phoenix Suns, led by the reigning 2005-2006 NBA Most Valuable Player, Steve Nash, were in town for a regular season game. But nothing was regular about this matchup for Alston. No, he would embarrass Steve Nash.
He hadn't hurt them. Alston going to the basket, lays it up and in. Great fake by Rafer.
Shifting him with streetball-esque moves, making him fall on a jab and rip.
Alston, good job. Taking it to the other side, and boy, he faked now.
And scoring over him with ease, ending the game with an incredible 29 points.
Oh, good move by Rafer Alston, and he used the basket.
April 14th, 2007. This time, the Oklahoma City Hornets, yes, the Hornets played in Oklahoma City, were in town, led by their pass-first point guard, Chris Paul. However, this would be Rafer's night. Skip would throw an incredible 13 assists throughout one of their final regular season games, with each dime helping Houston to grab an 11-point victory. Speaking of W's, Houston had turned things around. With both McGrady and Yao Ming healthy and Rafer leading the offense, Houston would win 52 games, earning them the 5th seed in the Western Conference. It was finally time for Rafer to guide his team to an NBA title. Their first step, defeat the Utah Jazz. May 5th, 2007, Utah has tied the series after a vital Game 6 victory, meaning whoever wins this game will be the team to move on to the second round. Utah and Houston would exchange bucket for bucket, both team stars trying desperately to gain an edge. However, it would be the Rockets heading home after a devastating 4-point loss to the Jazz. Alston had failed to achieve his goal, and the person who brought him to the Rockets would pay. Shortly after Rafer's former head coach left the team, Houston had decided to hire another coach who had just been let go, the former Sacramento Kings head coach, Rick Adelman. Alston, who had been in this exact situation before, wondered if it would just end up like his second stint with the Raptors, or would this change be exactly what his team needed? March 16th, 2008, the Houston Rockets have just solidified themselves in the NBA record books thanks to a career-high performance from Skip. You see, over the past 2 months, Houston hasn't lost a single game, and thanks to a 31-point performance from Rafer, they would win their 22nd game in a row, the 4th highest win streak in the history of the NBA. Thanks to this incredible streak, the Rockets would win 55 games, and Alston was ready to get revenge in their first-round matchup against, you guessed it, the Utah Jazz. However, Houston had a problem because during their NBA record win streak, they would lose one of their most important pieces to injury. Due to Yao Ming's absence, Houston would once again be eliminated by the Utah Jazz, this time in just 6 games. Skip was devastated, but it was another injury that would completely change Skip Tomailu's career forever. Stan Van Gundy, who had been acquired by the Orlando Magic from the Miami Heat in exchange for a second-round pick to become their head coach in June of 2007, has just watched his all-star point guard go down with a shoulder injury halfway through the 2008-2009 season. Stan was shocked. Orlando had been so dominant that season. Their superstar big man, Dwight Howard, was having an MVP level year, and it seemed likely that they would be the team to make it out of the Eastern Conference. But not without a point guard. Coach Van Gundy knew he had to find someone to replace Jameer Nelson, and after talking to his brother, he knew exactly who to call. So, on the 20th of February 2009, Rafer Alston was traded to the Orlando Magic to fill in for the injured Jameer Nelson. Skip had finally got his chance to be on an NBA championship contending team, one that aside from Nelson was 100% healthy and primed for a deep playoff run. But was Rafer actually capable of leading his team to a playoff series victory? Or were all the critics right in saying that Skip was just a street baller trying to be an NBA player, rather than an incredible professional point guard that just so happens to have played street ball? Throughout their first-round matchup against the Philadelphia 76ers, Alston averaged an impressive 15.2 points, 4.8 assists, and 1.2 steals in their 6-game victory. Rafer had shown that he was more than capable of leading his team to a playoff series victory, but he, alongside his Magic teammates, were hungry for a championship. However, their next opponent wasn't a young team that was just happy to have made the playoffs. No, they were set to face the defending NBA champions, the Boston Celtics. This would be Skip's first real test against arguably the best point guard in the NBA that season, Rajon Rondo. Yet it wasn't Rondo who tested Rafer throughout their first 2 games. You see, Eddie House was on fire during Game 2, scoring an incredible 31 points off the bench, and after he hit a tough long 2 against Skip, Rafer would slap him.
Did you say something to make Rafer slap you in the head?
No, I just made a shot, and I think that, that's what happened when you start busting somebody. They get upset like that instead and resort to Bush League tactics.
Oh, no, he didn't. Skip Tomailu. Are you kidding me about that? No way were you bringing that to the and one circuit. Hot sauce and headache would have eaten you alive for that, dog.
Alston would be suspended for his actions during Game 3. The time off allowed him an opportunity to reflect on how the NBA really viewed him, because over the following week of games, Rafer would dissect Boston's defense, utilizing his incredible basketball IQ to find wide open shooters.
Petrus, no hesitation. He's hit 2 outside shots in a row.
His incredible passing ability to seam passes through impossible gaps,
Alston racing the floor, finding Howard,
and get into a skip-to-my-loo bag of tricks when it was needed for some crucial buckets.
Things maybe get a little out of hand in the second half, Mark.
Thanks, David. Here's Alston firing one.
Meaning, despite the series going all the way to Game 7, it was Orlando who would be moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. May 20th, 2009, the 2008-2009 NBA Most Valuable Player has just scored his 48th and 49th point. LeBron James has given his Cleveland Cavaliers a 2-point lead with 25.8 seconds remaining. Alston's incredible 8-assist performance was mere seconds away from meaning nothing.
1.5 differential between the game clock and shot clock. Cavaliers up by 2. Lewis pops it out to Turkoglu. Lewis for 3, yes! Orlando has taken it.
However, LeBron wasn't finished. He wanted nothing more than another opportunity to win the elusive NBA championship he had been fighting for since he entered the NBA in 2003. Therefore, over the next 5 games, James averaged a mind-boggling 36 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 8 assists. But was this enough to get his Cavaliers over the line? Because Alston continued his point guard domination, hitting insane step-back jumpers over LeBron.
Season and the postseason, that includes hitting teammates. Oh, Alston!
Moving past him with a lovely Eurostep.
Gonna block out your man. Oh, Alston able to get right to the rim.
And finding his wide-open teammates with incredible precision. Rafer was truly showing the NBA world that not only was he a legit starting point guard, but a floor general capable of taking his group to the NBA Finals, which is exactly what he had done. But would he be able to achieve his true dream of winning an NBA title? June 17th, 2008, the Boston Celtics have just defeated Kobe Bryant and his Los Angeles Lakers in the NBA Finals by an embarrassing 39 points in Game 6. Bryant was devastated. He had struggled to even make the playoffs since his superstar teammate Shaquille O'Neal had left the Lakers in 2004, and his first opportunity to win his 4th ring, inching him closer to overtaking his idol Michael Jordan, had been ruined by Boston. Therefore, Bryant was a man possessed throughout the 2008-2009 season, averaging 26.8 points and leading his Lakers back to the NBA Finals. The stage was set. The Orlando Magic against the Los Angeles Lakers. Also, quick pause, can we bring back these old NBA Finals courts? Look how amazing it looks. The giant trophy, NBA Finals logo on the court. Anyway, Kobe was unstoppable. He dropped 40 points in Game 1 and a crucial 29 in Game 2, meaning Orlando had found themselves down 2-0. Yet again, the whole of the NBA world turned against Rafer and his Orlando teammates, with many believing the series was completely over and that Alston, who had struggled in both losses, wasn't a championship level point guard. Game 3, back in Orlando. No team has ever come back from being 3-0 down in the NBA Finals. The Magic have to win this game, and while Rafer Alston continued to be himself, he knew deep down that something had to change. Therefore, Skip to my Lou would show up throughout Game 3. Skip would use the exact same moves he used to show in Rucker Park to embarrass his defenders on the biggest stage in basketball.
He's shooting at a 90% clip from the line. Alston, really fancy, puts it up. That shot is good. Rafer Alston.
Skip would spin and cross his way to 20 points.
10 points, 10 boards for Howard. Alston backs it in again. Rafer Alston, 7 of 9.
Saving the Orlando Magic from certain death. However, this is where things would take a dark turn for not only the Orlando Magic, but Alston's professional career, because Kobe Bryant was too much. He would score 32 points in Game 4 and 30 in Game 5, completely crushing the Magic. So, what now? Alston had clearly proven himself as an NBA championship level point guard, one that all 30 teams in the NBA could use, and with 1 year left on his contract, would the Magic bring him back? Well, with Jameer Nelson, the player Rafer was brought in to replace returning for the 2009-2010 season, and Orlando, in desperate need of someone to slow Bryant down, Skip was traded to the New Jersey Nets. But Alston had one key issue with this move. You see, New Jersey wasn't a contending team. They would end the 2009-2010 season with the NBA's worst record, and given that Skip was 33 years old, he knew his window for achieving his one true goal was running short. Therefore, the Nets, understanding of their new starting point guard situation, would kindly allow Rafer to buy himself out of his contract halfway through the season, and Alston knew exactly where he wanted to go. Rafer would return to being a pure point guard. Pat Riley and his new head coach Erik Spoelstra were focused on creating an environment of structure, which is exactly why Rafer had signed. However, there was one clear trend with each passing game. Carlos Arroyo, another Miami Heat point guard from Puerto Rico, who had originally been the starter before Pat Riley signed Alston, was slowly earning his role back under head coach Erik Spoelstra, until one night in early March of 2010, when despite starting as usual, Rafer would only play 6 minutes against the Golden State Warriors. But this wasn't all, because in their next game against the Lakers, it was Carlos who was given the nod to be the Heat's starting point guard. And while Alston initially assumed he would just become Miami's backup, Coach Spoelstra didn't play him a single minute. Skip was frustrated. He picked up his phone and texted Coach Spo, informing him he was no longer interested in playing for the Miami Heat, resulting in Heat president Pat Riley suspending Rafer for the remainder of the season. Yet, given his value as a point guard, Alston wasn't worried. He felt confident another NBA team would pick him up. Or would they? Alston would spend all summer waiting to hear from his agent about NBA teams interested in signing him, but his phone remained silent. Skip Tuimailu's NBA career was over. Rafer would officially retire 2 years later, ending his career as the only player in history to successfully transition from streetball to the NBA. However, while he did bring his Rucker Park moves to NBA courts, Alston was more than just a fancy ball handler. He was a floor general capable of dissecting a defense with his IQ, knowing who would be open and when. And while he did embarrass defenders by breaking their ankles, he ultimately did more damage, playing incredibly efficient and high-level basketball. Also, did you know that there was another NBA legend who won 5 NBA titles, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and led the league in rebounding for a record-breaking 7 years in a row, despite spending all night partying before his games? Well, that player is Dennis Rodman, and to find out more about his inspiring story, click the video on your screen now.